Hello everyone and welcome to another Star Wars figure review. Today we're going to take a look at some more figures from the Mission Series 2 pack line, and this time around we're going to take a look at two figures from The Empire Strikes Back. Now I do have previous releases of these two figures in my collection, and don't get me wrong, there have been some far superior versions released of these two characters. But for this pack in particular, the nostalgia factor really got me. These figures look fantastic, they're a nice nod to the original Kenner figures, and I'm a big fan of this pack. It is none other than this one, Boba Fett and the Imperial Stormtrooper. Now, as I said, I do currently own multiple versions of these two characters, both super articulated and poorly articulated. These are definitely poorly articulated, but the sculpts on these guys are phenomenal, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Before we do, however, as always, we are going to take a look at the packaging that these two figures come in. And once again, we have some very nice artwork on this card. You've got the Stormtrooper featured in the background there, as well as the Star Wars logo at the top. Now, one thing to point out is the fact that with these Mission Series packs, obviously you can collect some figures from the saga and also from the Rebels TV series, and those are told apart by the logos on the top of the card. Obviously, on the saga figures, you have the Star Wars logo, and on the Rebels figures we have the Rebels logo. On either side of the card we have an image of the Stormtrooper and also of Boba Fett. And on the reverse side we have a still image from The Empire Strikes Back featuring Boba Fett speaking with Darth Vader and the Stormtrooper hiding away in the background there. Just below that we have some other packs available in the range. Once again, all of these have been reviewed with the exception of Obi-Wan and Grievous, which in my opinion is a pretty poor pack. So there we go, that is the packaging that these two figures come in. Now let's take a look at what we get inside this pack, and we'll kick things off with the Mandalorian bounty hunter himself, Boba Fett. Now, as I said at the beginning of the review, I do own multiple versions of Boba Fett, and don't get me wrong, most of them are better than this figure. The only reason that I really picked this one up is because the nostalgia factor with this one is very high. These really are a very nice throwback to some original Kenner vintage figures. They look really retro, and the sculpts themselves are not bad at all, so I am really pleased with these two figures. Boba Fett in particular is a very nice sculpt. He's posed in a battle ready pose, ready to fire his blaster. He just looks very cool. I'll run through articulation first, and then we'll talk about some of the details of the figure and some of the trivia behind it. He does of course feature a mere 5 points of articulation, which I know is enough to put some people off, but the articulation that this figure does have are swivel head, swivel shoulders and swivel hips. Obviously the helmet isn't removable, and the helmet itself does look very nice indeed. It's sculpted really well. You've got all those scrapes and dints on the helmet painted there. Really nice indeed. The rangefinder obviously doesn't move, although that's not a major deal breaker for me personally. During the movie, Boba Fett only ever adjusts his rangefinder once in the film, and it's a blink and you'll miss it scene, so that's not really an issue for me. In terms of other sculpted details, we have the firing darts sculpted there on the forearm gauntlet, if the camera decides to focus in on that. And on the other side we have the flamethrower with the wire going up Boba's sleeve. On this side of the figure, as you can see, we've got that really cool looking Mandalorian skull emblem printed on the shoulder. That's really nice, big and prominent. Stands out really nicely there. And as you can see, some of the details of the figure itself are indeed sculpted. Now the cape, obviously on previous releases, has been soft goods, whereas with this guy it's sculpted in place. And as you can see on the other side, if we remove the backpack, the Wookiee braids are sculpted as well. Now the backpack is removable, and as you can see that's a very nice sculpt as well. And the only way to fit this particular Boba Fett figure into the brand new Slave 1 vehicle is indeed by removing the backpack. Sadly, he won't fit in there with the backpack in place. As you can see on the back of the leg of Boba Fett, we do have a holster for a blaster pistol, but as you can see there is no blaster pistol in sight, and the holster itself is one solid sculpted piece, so you can't even put a different blaster inside there, which is a shame. On the legs we've got some sculpted pouches and pockets, and as you can see down on the shins we've got those pouches featuring the tools and razors that Boba carries around. There's another printed emblem on the chest which looks really cool. And once again, the overall sculpt of this figure is very nice. This particular Mission Series 2 pack was a must for me because it came with two very cool characters. However, if you were lucky enough to find Wave 2 of the 2013 line of Saga Legends figures at retail, then you will have probably picked this figure up and the Stormtrooper individually, as these were both released during that line. I think they were a little bit difficult to come by at the time. They were packed alongside figures such as Captain Rex and Commander Cody, so it's really nice that Hasbro decided to bring these two figures together and release them in one pack. So again, like with C-3PO and R2-D2 from my previous Mission Series review, if you're happy with your previous releases of Boba Fett, there is no real reason to pick this guy up, but for me personally there was just something cool about him that made me want to add him to my collection. So that's Boba Fett. Moving on, let's take a look at the Stormtrooper. Now in this figure's case, this is a whole new kettle of fish. I absolutely love this figure. As I mentioned in my Zeb and Stormtrooper Mission Series pack review a couple of months ago, these Stormtrooper figures from the Saga Legends and Mission Series lines are real throwbacks to the original Kenner figures, because you know there's not much more that says Star Wars than an Imperial Stormtrooper. So a 5 points of articulation Stormtrooper, in my opinion at least, isn't a bad thing because it's a real nice nostalgic and retro throwback. The one thing that really stands out to me about this particular figure is the helmet sculpt, which looks absolutely stunning. I've got to say, this is my favourite Stormtrooper helmet sculpt so far. It looks just like it jumped out of the film, and you know, a super articulated version of this guy would just be, it'd be the definitive Stormtrooper in my opinion. As you can see, the only thing that really, you know, puts me off this figure is the fact that the paint applications aren't particularly great. As you can see, the mouthpiece on my sample is a little bit wonky, but again, it's not a massive issue or a deal breaker for me. Stormtrooper does come with a brand new sculpted E11 blaster rifle. And again, in terms of articulation, he does feature a mere 5 points. We've got a swivel at the neck, swivels at the shoulders, and swivels at the hips. Obviously, the rest of the armour is pretty screen accurate to what we see in the movies. Got the thermal detonator on the back there. But once again, the real highlight of this particular figure is that awesome helmet sculpt. Now, like with Boba Fett, this figure was also made available in the Saga Legends line in 2013. So if you have picked that figure up already and you only really want one of these guys in your collection, again, there's no real reason to pick up this particular set. But for me personally, this guy was a must-have, and I wouldn't be opposed at all to army building this figure. So that is going to do it for the Mission Series 2 pack featuring Boba Fett and the Imperial Stormtrooper. Two very cool figures, ones that I definitely recommend picking up, but as I said before, if you're happy with your previous versions, then probably save yourself £10 or $10 and skip this set, because it just features two characters that we've seen before, but again, in my personal opinion, they're very cool, very nostalgic and very retro. Really nice figures. So if you've enjoyed having a look at these two figures with me, and I'll be back with some more reviews very soon. Got tons to give you a look at. We'll be taking a look at some more LEGO in my next review, and then we'll be moving on to Hasbro's Black Series 6-inch line. So tons to look forward to here on the SithLord229 channel, and until next time, as always guys, thank you for watching, keep collecting, and may the Force be with you.